Hello everybody, it is me, Pacific. You knew I wasn't going to leave this issue alone. I made a video last night, started to upload it, and thought, now let's wait until we see what the decision is. It is Tuesday morning. As I told you, they've given us a whole week off for the Thanksgiving holiday. Been very busy, sorry I haven't been uploading a plethora of videos, but I do want to comment on this one. Last night, after listening to the edge of the seat announcement that a lot of the nation and the world was riveted to last night, was that in the Michael Brown case, you remember in August, Michael Brown was shot by Officer Wilson, a police officer, a white police officer, Michael Brown being a black individual. And the grand jury was selected to hear the, if you will, witnesses, both sides, the coroner's report, both the coroner hired by Michael Brown's folks and the coroner hired by the Ferguson Police Department. There was a federal investigation, as well as the state, I believe, and county, the police officers. I found it interesting that last night, as the district attorney made the announcement, I have to give him credit for using wisdom and choosing a grand jury. Because when we have cases like this, people are going to cry foul ball. But a grand jury, 5 of them were black people. 5 of them were black people. Came to the conclusion that Officer Wilson, there was not enough evidence that he should be indicted. Now I want to say something. We're going to talk about a lot of things today, so bear with me. White people in America have been backed into a corner by this multiculturalism, by how do I want to say this? By a segment of black America that has billy-whipped us into a corner with political correctness, with, racism, throwing the racism label out at will without any justification. I got comments when I gave my 2 cents worth on the Michael Brown case just on its own. And by the way, for those viewers that want to tune in again, I was correct. Michael Brown is guilty as hell. He was a thug. He was a criminal. He was not carrying himself circumspectly. And what really bothers me is after hearing all this last night, it's like, wow, I didn't even know all this. He approached the cop car. He did not do what he was supposed to do. He was feeling pretty high after roughing up a store clerk, which the black community never outraged against that. A guy running his own business, minding his own business, and Mr. Brown comes in and is going to steal a box of cigars. And he ended up walking out of the store with the cigars. And Mr. Wilson was already responded to a call with a woman with a child who was having baby who was having complications. He waited till the paramedics came. He then responded to the call about the store being robbed. And as he was going down the street, he sees Michael Brown with another black individual walking down the middle of the street. Things were happening pretty fast here. The officer says, hey, could you guys move out of the middle of the street, please? Move to the side of the road. Words were exchanged. Now let's stop right there. Do you know what drove this madness? Social media. And I'm going to tell you something. Pacific uses social media. Pacific, to a large extent, outside of my job that keeps me busy, my duties of managing the estate I live on, dealing with the stuff that is going on in my personal world, and taking the time to be in touch with my viewers and to have, if you will, I'm going to call it my blog, because that's what this is. I watch this stuff, and it shocks me. Because the police officer was white, the black community in Ferguson becomes outraged because one of their own was shot. Excuse me. The black community does not, as Deshaya Coleman wisely stated, the black community does not act with outrage, protest, and rallies when one of their own black children is shot and killed and murdered and raped by their own black community, which happens every single day in America. Did you know that? Did the black community act with any outrage to the store owner who didn't deserve the behavior of Michael Brown, stealing a product from his store and then roughing him up? No, the black community showed their respect to the store owner by the ensuing riots, breaking into and looting that person's store. I thought it was interesting that the DA appealed to the black community last night and said, as they were standing up in full force last night outside that courtroom, and I knew. We've seen this MO before. I knew last night these people aren't just going to walk away quietly after hearing the facts and leave this alone. I just got up, turned on the internet, and it's total chaos. Gunshots, setting businesses on fire, smashing out patrol car windows. I even saw one picture of a car completely ablaze. The DA said the world is watching, and basically in his own way said, let's act with some class. I said to the lady of the house, we're talking about a segment of America, ghetto black people, and we're going to appeal to them through wisdom? It doesn't work. Excuse me one moment. I want to apologize to my viewers. Coming down over a long-winded cold and some allergies when I was working in the yard yesterday, kicked up a lot of dust and allergens with leaf removal. I look at the comments I got by black people on my channel, the F you, the ghetto comments, telling me I'm part of the problem, I'm racist, on and on. When you're dealing with people such as rioted last night, their mind is geared only one direction. They want blood. They don't want facts. They don't want truth. The federal people listened to this and looked at evidence. The county, the state, coroners. The DA said that there were many people that came out and said that Michael Brown was shot in the back multiple times. The coroner's reports denied that. Not one bullet was fired into the back of Michael Brown. When those witnesses were interviewed, their stories contradicted. When many of those witnesses were interviewed and later re-interviewed, finally admitted they weren't even there and did not witness the shooting. And over I heard the DA use words, social media, social media. And even though Pacific uses social media, there's a lot of lying on social media. The internet is a world full of danger. The internet is a place where troubled malcontents can get together believing a lie and foment rebellion. The internet is a place where a bunch of people can get on Facebook in Egypt and start a revolution and overthrow a wicked and bad government. The internet can be both good and it can be a tool for bad. Even I know that on my channel, and everybody knows this, you get on YouTube, and I would say a huge percentile majority of the comments left on videos are done by unemployed, malcontents, overweight, drug using, alcohol using, meaning getting drunk, people who have no purpose but to get on and just punk all over the internet. A lot of people that leave their nasty, atrocious comments don't have a face picture, don't have a video. You click on their ID and you look at the videos they're listening to and you go, boy, more garbage in American society. The problem is you don't have to have money to get on YouTube and leave comments. You can go to the public library and leave comments on the internet. I said in my video about race card justice, and that is exactly what this whole circus has been, and it continues to be. A segment of Black America is not content with the facts last night, and they're going to go ahead and continue to infer, oh, racism, racism, racism. I'm going to say something to my viewers, both black and white. Racism does exist. But those people rioting in Missouri last night are the real racists. Hit them over the head with a 2x4 of truth and they still won't get it. They didn't get their way, and their only way, they think, is this officer needs to be hauled off to jail and executed. That the black segment, black community, this segment of the black community would go all out to defend a thug, a criminal, a bad boy. The Bible says to avoid the appearance of evil. Michael Brown not only did not avoid the appearance of evil, he failed in the next thing. Submit to the governing authorities, and he did not do that. And what bothers me is a lot of these blacks behaving and acting like this will all claim that they believe in God and have some spiritual roots. Yeah. But white people aren't allowed to talk about this issue. White people have been muzzled, intimidated, and backed into a political correctness corner while blacks can mouth off and accuse us of racism. On Martin Luther King Day in Denver, Colorado, they can continue to have all the students come down to Manual High School and show video after video showing the abuses of white men long ago, spraying them with fire hoses, Rosa Parks refusing to sit in the back of the bus. And with all due respect, what does Pacific see? They fought to sit wherever they want in the bus, and a lot of the black students go to the back of the bus to this day. They're free to go wherever they want, and they want to sit in the back of the bus. Pushing this continual in your face every Martin Luther King Day, how bad the whites were, when today that stuff does not go on. They're not being sprayed with fire hoses. I talked to a Hispanic individual back in the 90s when I drove school bus. And we were cleaning tables at a middle school in Denver, Colorado for summer. And we talked about the black dynamic. And this was his words. We were talking about the Rodney King stuff and the OJ thing, and he said, everybody knows what goes on with this stuff. Everybody knows that the real racism comes from them, but everybody's afraid to talk about the elephant in the room. This segment of the black community gives the blacks, in general, in America, a black eye. Watching this morning, Ferguson under siege, business owners that had nothing to do with Michael Brown, a pizza shop, a supply warehouse, whatever. I'm going to tell you something, and I've seen it here in Denver, Colorado. Driving my school bus, driving my pickup. You go into northeast Denver, and black people will walk down the middle of the street. They don't move. And I know what they're doing. They're begging for a challenge. They got sidewalks. Two cars driven by black men. One going this way, one going that way. Will stop, block traffic. Hey, how you doing, man? What up, dog? And you pull up behind them, they don't move. You tap the horn. The anger comes. It's like, I'm driving a school bus and I'm delivering your children. You think you could get out of the way? Pacific is not afraid of the intimidation that many blacks have tried to show to me. I just look at him and go, get out of the way, punk. What disturbs me is these people behaving like this are not representative of the entire black community. But it's the same common denominator that shows up in the Rodney King case and rioted and tore up LA and smashed up and set on fire Korean store owner shops. Koreans who had nothing to do with the police brutality, of Rodney King going over 100 miles an hour on LA freeways the wrong way, and the police tried to get him to stop, and they couldn't get him to stop. And the blacks' only sense of outrage comes when anything involving white authority clashes against bad African American behavior. Not that statistically many black men abandon their children. Many black men get incarcerated for violence against black women. We ignore all that, or they ignore all that. And they want to paint a picture that everything is all because of racism. Go into the northeast neighborhoods of Denver. Brick homes, lower middle class homes that many of them have moved into and bought. People's cars still get stolen. People's homes get broken into. This, by the way, is not done by white people who are also sprinkled in that neighborhood. Did you know that I made a statement to the man of the house and the lady of the house last night? You know, even if this decision, if they chose to indict Officer Wilson, will you see the white people rioting and tearing stuff up? Nope. My question is, why did they wait till 9 o'clock and some change to release this decision? Well, I'm going to say something that's not going to be very popular, but Michael Brown's parents should be charged for all of the money involved in all of the damage, the destruction, the police being needed to cull this stuff. I don't believe in pussyfooting with these guys. I don't believe in being sensitive. The DA was being nice when he said, my sympathies are expressed to the parents of Michael Brown for the loss of their son. I have a hard time with that. I don't know what Michael Brown's parents are like, but that Michael Brown's parents were immediately ready to sue, and scream for justice. Well, justice was served last night. And that a whole bunch of intelligent people from all different jurisdictions got together and said the evidence just doesn't support the so-called runaway social media blah, blah, blah. And he said over and over, physical evidence told a different story. And even when the witnesses were pressed, their stories contradicted. When you don't have credible witnesses. When push comes to shove and the witnesses said, well, I wasn't actually there when the shooting occurred. When Michael Brown couldn't submit to authority and even get out of the road. When Wilson hadn't even ascertained at that moment when he saw the two in the road that he was connected with the store being robbed. And then when a description came out over the radio of what the suspect was wearing, then Wilson said, I got him right here. Can I get some backup, please? Wilson operated with protocol. And for the black ghetto people that get on my site and leave their FU comments, You guys need your head examined. White people have been bullied by this kind of stuff for a long time. The kind of justice that these hoods wanted last night wasn't satisfactory. They wanted Officer Wilson's head, no matter what. And acting like a bunch of children that don't get their way, they're going to stomp their feet and yell and scream and make so much noise. And let me tell you what was said, black people, when I lived in Hong Kong. I was sitting down at a restaurant that was so crowded, and the custom in China is when you sit in a restaurant, you don't get the booth or the table by yourself like you do in America. Chinese are smart. We got a business to run, there's a seat, sit down. They'll slide people right in next to you. I liked that. I got to meet some very neat individuals. I met a man who was a marine engineer. He had sailed back and forth on ships to San Francisco. We got along very well. I ran into him several times. We even emailed each other and kept in touch for a while. He said to me, I watch the news in your country. Whenever there's a high-profile case or something, I see the way the African Americans behave, and we over here just shake our heads. He said here in Hong Kong, there's a lot of prejudice against blacks because we've seen their behavior in the U.S. Now, before some of my viewers go, well, you know the media spin doctors. The media does spin doctor. Excuse me. But the media also enjoyed every bit of fomenting the rebellion, the drama, and the chaos that ensued with this whole case. You stand up and accuse the black people on national media of racism, the media isn't going to listen to that. But if the black people stand up and scream racism when one of their own who was behaving and was acting like a thug was breaking the law by robbing a store, 1, 2, roughing up a clerk, that's assault, 3, refusing to obey directives to move to the side of the road, 4, exchanging words with a cop, how come I, as a white guy, would never mouth off to a cop, even if I think the cop's an a-hole? I'm going to tell you a little story. 4th of July, Prescott, Arizona, many, many years ago, back in the 80s. I had a 72 hot rod pickup. Gurley Street was the main drag through town. And people would drive their jacked up 4x4s or the lowriders up and down, blasting music with people loaded in the car to the point of too many people in the car. And a friend of mine and I decided to go to his house, put a giant plastic trash can in the back of my truck and fill it to the top with water. We got all our buddies together, had them stuffed in the back of my pickup and went up and down the street. And they were throwing water balloons. They were squirt gun fights, you know, normal behavior on the 4th of July. Everybody asked me to stop. I had the rear sliding window open and my 2 windows down, and they were sitting on the bed of the pickup on the edge, so I couldn't see out my side mirrors. They said, wait, girl wants to get on. And then they yelled, go, go, she's on. I said, is everybody on? Yes. I went to go. The girl was grabbing the tailgate. She fell backwards into the street. Yes, I was in my 20s then. I immediately heard the woo. Oh. I was in bumper-to-bumper traffic, and everybody bailed out of my truck except 2 of my close friends. Ran in all directions. I pulled over. A white officer came to me, and he was angry. Yelled at me, used swear word at me, and I'm sitting in there complying. You know, do you know what happened? I said, no. I said, I know I wasn't speeding. I had too many people in the back. I couldn't. There's too much traffic. He said, a girl was getting in your truck and you took off and she fell backwards. I said, I'm sorry, sir, I didn't see. The guy told me, he says, if I see you out here again tonight, there's going to be a problem. I'm thinking, I said, well, I have to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to deliver papers for the Prescott Courier. That's fine, I better not see you before then. I was compliant. I didn't argue with him. And he was clearly having a bad day. My two friends got out of the truck and said, officer, they told him to go and he couldn't see. But I noticed something. I kept calm and I just submitted. And he finally backed down. He says, I'm really sorry. Do you know what's been going on out here today? We got people waving guns around. There's people acting up. And he says, you know, I'm just telling you. He says, we got a lot of problems out here today. You know, it's the 4th of July. I said, I'm sorry, sir. He issued me a ticket that simply said obstructed visibility. He could have thrown the book at me. I went down and paid the fine. I think it was even a no-point violation. I don't mouth off to police officers. And I certainly would not walk up to their car and reach into their car and punch an officer in the face. Why is it that in the black community, many black people think it's okay for Michael Brown to do these kinds of things? I just told my viewers this week about a black woman who looked as jaded and hard as they come running my stop sign, and I laid the horn on. I held it down as I knew she wasn't going to stop. She was traveling pretty fast, 25-mile-an-hour residential section, with black children in her own neighborhood boarding my bus. She's yelling at me. She opens her door, then say, I'm sorry, sir, calling me bitch. The first thing I think of is, do you know what the word bitch means? Excuse me. It usually means a female dog, babies. I knew when that woman was talking to me that way, I'm dealing with a ghetto, non-intellectual black woman. A woman who's probably done drugs, a woman who doesn't care about any of us white people. And then she starts telling me, you're supposed to do your job. Hello. Part of my job is getting traffic to stop to pick up kids safely. Ma'am, if students, and this woman is not listening. She had the mentality that you saw last night. Yelling, screaming, cussing, blah, 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 running her mouth like a toilet bowl. And I just sat there, me as a white male, who's not prejudiced at all, and I thought, you know what? You're not going to win with this girl. I shut the window. And I started writing stuff down. She goes like this. I opened my window, I grabbed the two-way radio, and I said, I'll call for you, and I will turn this in as soon as I get back. Shut the window, pulled forward, looked at her license plate from the back end, wrote it down. When she saw me doing that, she sped off. Uh-huh. Yeah. You know you're in the wrong, lady. By the way, she never did call. She doesn't have a case. She doesn't have a pot to pee in. All this while the black students on my bus are watching, shaking their head going, wow. If you want to make a statement against white people, lady, that's not the way to do it. Telling me how to do my job? I know that you've never driven a school bus. And I know for a fact that if it was your child that was hit by a motorist going through my stop arm, you'd be all over it and wanting to sue everybody involved, including me as the driver. There is a huge form of hypocrisy in this segment of the African American community. And when I meet black people, either online or in public, like Venus Star in Barbados, Deshaya Coleman. I am sorry about clearing my throat, folks. You'll have to bear with me. When I meet people like that who are intelligent, God-fearing, and these kind of women would never endorse the behavior that's going on in Ferguson, Missouri. And I'm going to say something damning, but it's an observation I've made. I look at a woman like Deshaya Coleman in her videos. They're thoughtful, they're intelligent, and she's as smart as a whip girl. She's an attractive woman. She carries herself well. Her countenance, her eyes, her face shows a well-adjusted human being. I notice her video views are low. And I think, why are they so low? Well, I'll tell you some things, I think. A segment of the African American community, and a lot of those people get on YouTube and social media. There's no requirements for who can be on social media. Anybody can get on. People behaving like you see in Ferguson, Missouri, they're not going to want to listen to her because she's intellectual. She's smart. She doesn't play the victim. Never once do you hear her talking about the injustice of the white people against her people. But when a white person stands up and says what she said, that segment of the black community gets very irate, calls me racist, tells me I'm part of the problem, F you, even calls me nigga. I'm like, really? You just called me the very word that if a white man says to you, you're ready to fight? Pacific doesn't even use that word. I don't like it. I've had black girls on my bus refer to each other as that, and I said, hey, I don't want to hear that word. Oh, it's okay, mister, we can use it. We're black. I said, no, you can't use it. I said, if anybody says it, it's a racial epithet, and you should know better. The facts are the facts. And you need to know that Pacific watched the proceedings last night, and I said, oh, now the truth comes out. Do you know it was Barack Obama who required a federal investigation into this? Did you know that the federal investigation evidence was put forth last night with the grand jury? Did you know that? Or not last night, but during the course of this? Why is it that this segment of the black community is making this a racial issue when it is not a racial issue? It's about a young man who did not avoid the appearance of evil at all, who was breaking the law on many fronts, who was looking for a fight, and decided to make his last stand by taking on a white police officer, and Michael Brown lost. And I'm going to say something very bold, because God came down and said, enough, Michael Brown, enough. That's why. Yes, that there are injustices in the United States of America, no doubt. But when I hear the facts, when the grand jury heard the facts, when the feds looked at it, the coroners looked at it, and Michael Brown's family last night is disappointed at the decision, of course they are. They would love to get millions of dollars off of this. Has there been any soul searching in Michael Brown's parents as to, we screwed up? I doubt it. The entitlement group. We can do whatever we want. We're entitled, and don't you dare screw with us. Don't you dare cross our lines. But if a white man is downed by a black community, it's okay. If I were to walk in Ferguson and get shot and killed, minding my own business, no threat to them, would the blacks have a big rally about the injustice that I got? Hell no. You see, black community that behaves like this, we white people watch this and we know what you're all about. You keep racism alive and well. You keep the walls very high and impenetrable. There will be no intellectual dialogue with you because you operate on emotions only. You operate with the Neanderthal mentality that when we don't get our way, you're going to pay. Why does a pizzeria shop owner have to pay? Why do all these businesses that had nothing to do with it have to pay? Why do police cars have to be destroyed, which is my tax dollars and everybody's tax dollars? The DA even appealed to that segment of the black community and said, the world is watching. And I said aloud to the woman of the house, do you really think that the ghetto blacks are going to actually go, oh, that's right, let's conduct ourselves with class? They're incapable of it. America has fostered and raised a crop of these kind of people that are a drag on the system, that the collective cost of their absolute immature, disrespecting, lawless behavior is in the millions of dollars because they didn't get their way. Self-centered, selfish, operating on the law of the jungle. Not one of them gave any credibility that they're valid in their outrage and carried themselves with any compelling class. This is the black America I've grown up and watched. The riots with Rodney King. The blacks cheering O.J. Simpson running around in his Bronco with his buddy and thinking that's cool. Nobody caring that Ron Goldman was brutally slaughtered and Nicole Simpson was brutally slaughtered. And Nicole Simpson was your typical high-maintenance white woman who there was no love there. She wanted the prestige of being with a black football player, and that whole relationship was a living hell. She suffered abuse over and over. And the O.J. Simpson trial wasn't tried on facts. It was the most televised trial in my time. And when the jury came out of there not convicting O.J. Simpson on evidence alone, I thought something's wrong with justice in this country. And of course, the black community didn't outcry on that. But everybody I talked to outside that element of the ghetto black community all said, we know OJ was guilty. It was so obvious. This coming from people who liked O.J. Simpson as a football player and didn't even know the history of his violent abuse on Nicole Simpson prior to that. There was a sign that hung in my Spanish teacher's classroom in Mammoth High School. Rules. Rule number 1, the teacher is always right. Rule number 2, if the teacher is wrong, please refer to rule number 1. The ghetto blacks have the same rule. If a white man does anything to us, that's wrong. Rule number 2. Even if what we did was wrong, please refer to rule number 1. This segment of African American society is not interested in the facts. They like drama. They like mayhem. They want to shake their baby rattle and get attention for themselves. Disgusting. That not one of them stops and thinks, do you really feel good about torching somebody else's business? The answer is yes. They get off on that. It is too bad that because of timing, because of another emergency going on with the mother and her baby, when Wilson responded, it's too bad he couldn't have gotten to the store while Brown was roughing the clerk up. Then the officer could have shot him right then and there. It's too bad it couldn't have happened then. But I heard the facts put out last night. And the first thing when I got up this morning, after doing my daily constitutional and reading my devotions and turning on my computer was, how much you want to bet? The black people rioted and made hell last night. I was shocked at the level of it. They're lucky I'm not in charge. Because I'll tell you what, I don't believe in political correctness. I believe in truth. I would shut that down so fast. I'd have the entire city of Ferguson surrounded by tanks. I'd impose a curfew and say, we're not playing games. I would also bring to law every single one of those people. Lawsuits would be brought against them, their homes, everything. I would seize their homes. I would seize their automobiles, say we will use this as part of the payback, and you can pay off the loans, if they even have them. Oh, yes. I'd also enact a law that when people want to do justice and take it into their own hands and start smashing things up, that when you start setting businesses on fire, that's an attempt to manslaughter, and that you should be tried for a conviction of murder, and I would definitely push for your death sentence. America has put up with this stuff too long, and I believe in solving problems, not keeping them going. I grew up in Los Angeles. I used to walk home with black students, Mexican students, whites, Asians. But as I became an adult and I watched what happened, I saw a lot of problems coming from a segment of the black community in this country. Story after story I've already told you of walking down the street on 3rd Street in Duluth. In an all-white neighborhood, and a black family moved into this house. And I'd walk to the store to get my groceries, and a black guy come out of the house and block the sidewalk. I'd go around him, and he'd move. I never called him names. I said, excuse me. I had to end up walking around the block the other way to avoid that. Right across the street from me, another black woman moved in with her brat child, yelling from the 2nd floor balcony, "Hey, honky!" I'd had enough of that. One day I said, "Are you racist, boy?" His mom just sat there in her bikini doing nothing. I thought, you move to a town that's predominantly white, we're minding our own business, and you guys start going like this, poke, 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 poke. Duluth and St. Louis County in Minnesota started suffering a problem. The blacks were moving from Chicago and Gary, Indiana, because they knew the welfare was good up there. Asked the Duluth Police Department of what they witnessed when they started making a migration to Duluth. Crime went up. Gangs started. Gangs in Duluth where across the bridge in Superior, the bad boys would drive their cars around in the dark with no lights on. And any one of us would flash our lights. Hey, your lights are off. And if you did that, they'd chase you and beat the crap out of you. Deliberately provoking an altercation. I knew one of our bus drivers who was involved with one of the black men in Duluth who was getting high school girls sucked into his gang. He was a freak. He was a pervert. He was an idiot. And this white girl that I knew was a bus driver was as trashy as they come. I said, "You're involved with that guy?" I lived in the Northeast, Denver, 28th and St. Paul. Rented from a white woman a bedroom in her house. New Year's Eve in that neighborhood, mostly black neighborhood, come out and start shooting guns in the air. I was married to my wife of 14 years then. We were in a brick home. We were both awoken. She goes, "Is that gunfire?" I said, "Yes." She goes, "What do we do?" I said, "We stay laid down in this bed because we're lower than the windowsill and the outside of the wall is brick." I said, "We don't get up until the firing stops." She said, "What is the matter with these people?" I said, "I have no idea." I said, "But as soon as we Ken, we need to move out of this neighborhood. I've had discrimination and racism leveled at me when I'm minding my own business on a city bus. I've seen it in the terminal that I've worked at. I saw it in the 90s when I worked at a bus terminal in northeast Denver. I watched an entire room of black people side with O.J. Simpson, even though all the facts came out that were damning against him. Blood in the Bronco. And the whole cute little thing, if it don't fit, don't acquit, or you must acquit. Any intellectual thinking person would say that gloves, when they get wet, especially soaked with blood, are going to shrink when they're made out of leather. But in time, O.J. Simpson continued to prove the individual he was, and I believe he's in jail now somewhere for something. Justice? The parents of Michael Brown wanted justice. Did they really? What is their definition of justice? Is their definition of justice the true definition of justice? No. We don't like it that a white man shot our son. We're going to go after that white man. That's their definition of justice. Not, hey, your son, ma'am and sir, was doing this, 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 and this. A couple weeks ago, a very heavy, overweight black woman running my stop sign. I held the horn down. She slams on the brakes, rolls down her window, and says, "You're making a fool out of yourself." I said, "I'm holding the horn down because you ran my stop sign." She also went through it, yelling and screaming and going on and on and on. There's a segment of the black society in Denver that has clearly shown me by their irrational, emotional, out-of-control, reactive behavior that there really is something wrong with them. They know the rules, but they don't want to follow them. Why? Because in their mind, it was the white man that made those rules. But ma'am, I'm picking up black children in your neighborhood. They don't care. That segment. They don't care. I also turned in her license plate. You know what bothers black women? Is when I, as a young guy who clearly is no threat to them at all, doesn't back down, isn't afraid, and I just write up the report and say, you're going to, as long as I'm alive, I'm going to stand up against this crap. That really pisses them off. See, when we talk about racism, the clowns in Ferguson, Missouri, the only kind of discussion they want to have in racism is that all whites are racist. Shut down, end of story, no more discussion needed. But if a white man comes up and says, hey, I was adopted, I was rejected by my first parents, and in the family that adopted me, the white family, was abusive, over the top abusive. They rejected me. And I've had to fight for every square inch of anything I've got in my life. I haven't had favor as a white man. I've come up against towns that had good old boys clubs in the city government. Me with my driving skills couldn't even get on in Hibbing for the maintenance department because I wasn't part of the club. I've been through all that. And when I see people at work that are rude to me and mean to me and hateful of me and mocking me, Hispanic, black people, and then when I come in and I bless somebody who's nice to me and I buy her or somebody some goodies at the store and they go, oh, what about mine? And I want to say, and you expect me to show kindness to you when you hate me for no reason? I work hard for my money. Dun-dun, dun-dun. I get it. I watch now that black people and Hispanic people are in control where I work, and they're hiring their own kind, and that's okay. And now I'm finally hearing for the first time by other white people coming up and said, Pacific, we're the wrong color. See, if you really want to know what somebody's like, give them power and watch how they govern. If Pacific were in power, I believe in justice and fairness to all. But I also believe in shutting down stuff like Ferguson, Missouri. Hooligans, thugs, ghetto people, adult, black males, black women behaving like this in front of their children, passing the baton of racism and lawless behavior, and setting an example that will continue to give birth to more of this ensuing crapola. I cannot respect that community, and I will not respect that community. And they can call me racist, and they can say I'm a part of the problem. Excuse me, I don't get in my truck every day, and I don't go and block traffic and block streets and walk down the middle of streets, and I don't rob stores, and I don't talk back to cops. I try to keep my nose clean, and when a young man doesn't keep his nose clean, and he's nothing but a perp and a punk, and he gets taken out, guess what? I don't feel any sympathy for his family or for him. I am unable to do so. He got what he deserved. A lot of people don't get what they deserve in this country. A lot of black people in this country haven't had justice served out on them, and I've been waiting for a long time to see God's hand deal with that. I've also been waiting for God's justice on a lot of white people and Hispanic people and Asian people too. But God is long-suffering. Technically speaking, if I got the justice I deserved, God could strike me dead and take me out for the sins I've committed against him. So when somebody's screaming out for justice, you better be careful. Do you really want justice? What if God showed up to Michael Brown's parents and said, let me talk to you guys. Let's talk about your parenting skills, shall we? Let's talk about the role modeling you did, shall we? Let me show you the videotape of what your son did in its entirety, so there will be no doubt in your mind the cop did not act imprudently. These people making all this noise and screaming and yelling about injustice aren't going to be able to utter a whimper when they stand before Almighty God. America has been polarized by this form of bullyistic behavior. Don't offend the blacks. They'll riot and tear everything up. I remember the 90s when the rap music came out, and they came out with those round tube speakers, those bass. Boom. I hated that. I've noticed that the ghetto segment of our society can really hold us hostage. And if you don't believe me, go to Detroit. Go to Chicago. Go to Cabrini Green before it was all tore down and dismantled. Go to Denver, Colorado in the 90s, where people who were on welfare had nicer cars than I do, complete with expensive bass stereo systems, driving up and down, and that bass so loud it shakes the inside of your home. And you go out and ask these people, hey, could you please turn that down? F you, white boy. And the police wouldn't do anything about it. It was out of control. I don't hear it as much now. And I think part of that is because of economics. Things have gotten so expensive and things have changed. A lot of those thugs can't afford it anymore. I wrote a letter to a minister in Denver years ago. It was about 20 pages long. It was a black minister saying all the stuff white people done, and I wrote him back and I said, I would like to know why you don't address the issues of your own camp and the stuff that I've seen, and this rap music and this hate and this behavior. I remember when we lived at 16th and Logan, there was DHA, Denver Housing Authority, across the street. Hilltop Apartments, right on Logan Street. I won't give the last name of the individual, but black male named Henry. Had a nice little small car. He had one of those bay systems. On the 7th floor, this stuff would rock us out of there. I had learned enough. I'm not going to go down there and talk to him. It'd be pointless. I kept calling the police. 4th of July comes. For a month before and a month after, all the black people in this Hilltop Apartments, low income, a lot of them on welfare, coming out and shooting off tons of fireworks. My then wife says, how do they afford all this? I said, I have no idea. This car stereo was constant every night, every day, late into the night. Finally, I decided, you know what? I'm going to find every way I can to be a nag until they do something about this. Every time I heard it, I called the police. Then I called the owner of the Hilltop Apartments, or the manager, and said, I've got a problem. We have called the police over and over and over. One of your tenants is disturbing the entire neighborhood. Other tenants in our building were complaining about this punk. Finally, because of my persistence, because of God's hand, Mr. Henry was kicked out of the building, and they moved him to another location. They made him move. Said, you're disturbing everybody. We have to evict you. It was unbelievably quiet. Weekends would come. That same apartment building. People would come, black people would come in their car to pick up somebody who lived in that building, and they'd honk the horn and lay on the horn, waking everybody up in the Grosvenor Arms apartment building. One day I had had enough, and I opened the window. I said, hey, why don't you get out of the car and knock on the door instead of disturbing the whole world? Black man opens the car, get out. You got a problem? I said, yeah, you're being obnoxious. How many times you got to honk? Get up, knock on the door. F you, mother effer, honky, blah, 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 blah. I said, yeah, you're all tough down there on the street, dude. Shut up or I'll call the police. Continues to yell and scream, and I thought, this guy's older than me. I'm going to tell you something. From a white man's perspective, I've seen enough of the black community in this country, and I tell you what, when I go overseas and I talk to people, I say, I don't like a certain segment of the black community in this country. I'll admit it. Am I racist? No. I'm tired of their behavior, their actions, their lawlessness, their disrespect, their automatic built-in hatred towards the white man. You think I don't see it on my school bus? When young black women give me this hard look or won't even look me in the eye at all. But they see me consistently being fair and nice and greet them every morning. Good morning. One girl looks so hard, teenage girl. She's a beautiful woman, but she's got such a hard look in her face. And I hold my fist out so that the kids can go like this. And she finally will punch my fist back. Say, how you doing? Fine. Where does all this come from? Because she's got to know deep down inside, I'm not a threat to her. It's coming from their parents. It's coming from behavior in Ferguson. The kids grow up with a form of brainwashing. Ooh, my dad's mad. He's really mad. Look, he's burning down stuff because the white people aren't being fair. No, kid. Your dad's out of control. This isn't a white issue. This isn't a white issue at all. Something is missing in that segment of the black community that they no longer are outraged by their own lawless, illegal behavior. I wonder how the black people in Missouri would react if all the white people finally said, we've had enough of this bull crap. You burn down our businesses, you come into our neighborhoods and you tear everything up. We're going to set your whole neighborhood on fire and we're going to clean you out. I wonder. Seems to me it would be justified. No, it wouldn't. I'm not giving an endorsement of that. But the problem is the hypocrisy in the African American camp regarding this issue right now is disgusting. And Pacific Ocean Asia is going to say what he needs to say because it's the truth. All the clowns that got on months ago when I made my 2 cents worth on the Ferguson, Missouri Michael Brown case and said, you know what, if you don't want trouble, quit looking for it. I'm a white guy and I know that. You think a white cop is going to show me favor? Nope. Do I expect because an officer's black for him to show me favor? No. If I'm doing what's wrong, I'm the one that's guilty. Be a man. Suck it up. Michael Brown was on a mission that day. I can steal out of somebody's shop, I can rough him up, and then I can take on the police. He was feeling pretty big that day. When women are taking on a school bus driver, a 40-foot bus, who's stopped, who's been stopped, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and they were going to take issue with me. That's a woman who didn't grow up with proper role modeling. That's a woman who didn't grow up with an intelligent thinking mind. And what's really scary is we give these ghetto people cars, and they have children. And the most dangerous thing in any society is when parents like this have kids. And they pass this example on to their children so the children will continue to keep this flame burning. There's no licenses, no classes you have to take, no hoops you got to jump through to be authorized the right to have children. You can get somebody pregnant just to have a kid. And I see it all the time in our society. Babies having babies. And I see a segment of the African American community in the U.S. promote rebellion, promote racism, promote an us versus them. And I see white people acting silly and stupid, trying so hard not to offend them. And I said, stop it. Stop it. Even the DA was bending over backwards to say, why did the witnesses say what they said? Because they honestly believed it. I wouldn't have been as gracious. I said, because they're liars, that's why. They wanted to piggyback on something and jump in there when people who weren't even at the scene testified, oh yeah, shots were fired in his back. Well, I wasn't there. And then they get on social media and type all this. That's lying. I'm not going to be gracious to people like that. But I've watched in our lifetime that 50 years ago, a DA wouldn't have said that. It said because they're lying. They want to defend their own color only, so they're going to make up, fabricate, prevaricate, fib, lie, exaggerate. The thugs didn't get what they wanted last night. So now they're pissed. And they're going to take it out on you and me and everybody that's hardworking and minding their own business in Ferguson, Missouri. They're going to drag this into the streets and cost the taxpayers millions of dollars in police, law enforcement, SWAT teams, and loss to businesses. Crazy. I'm sorry, but to blacks that behave like that, please don't expect me to sit back and take you calling us racist. I can't do it. It is sad in America when, and I've got a message for those black people. You want to live in the days of slavery and you want to continue to play the victim, I've got a message for you. It wouldn't be that tough for you to save up enough money to get on a boat or a plane and go back to Africa and go be around your own people if you think it's so terrible over here and we're so bad. Because I'm going to tell you something that I've seen that I'm getting tired of. In the case of Mr. Henry, my taxes go to the state and the government to pay for people like Henry to buy nice cars, to shoot off fireworks, to play your bass stereo full blast, and wake me up and not even have the decency to let me get a good night's sleep so I can go to work and keep paying your taxes so you can sit on your lazy butt and live like an atrocious idiot to the rest of us. The services you take advantage of that were created and set up by the white man while telling us we're a bunch of racist fools. If America is so bad, I would gladly hold the door open and say, go, leave. Go make it happen in Africa. Go create your utopia over there. They don't want to do that. I've seen enough. I've seen enough. When an overweight black woman who's rude to everybody, racist, got a continual frown on her face, votes in Obama because he's black, grabs something out of my Filipinas friend's hand, most people don't like her. Most people that I work with said she's trouble. Her knees gave out on her because she had too much weight carrying around and she no longer works there. And I said to somebody, I don't miss her. Why would I? But of course, I'm a white guy, so I'm racist. The proof is in the pudding, a pastor used to tell me. And watching the way these nut jobs behaved last night, no, they're the racist. They didn't like the verdict. They didn't like the answer, even with all the facts stacked for all to see, including the feds, the state, the county, everybody involved. Nope. You see, this segment likes drama. They wanted Wilson's head. And I'm going to pray more for Wilson's protection at this point than the grand jury and the DA and the authorities that had nothing to do with this young man's death. You want to know who's responsible for Michael Brown's death? Michael Brown. That's who. It also says in the Bible it is appointed unto man once to die, and God is sovereign. And I told you we'll do a video soon on the sovereignty of God. Looks to me like that was Michael Brown's time. And how did Michael Brown go out? Helping less fortunate, low-income black children become better and do better in their education? No. Was Michael Brown volunteering at a charitable organization to help people? No. Was Michael Brown working at his job that day and putting in an honest day's work? No. Was Michael Brown the kind of individual that made people feel good and feel better about themselves in a proper way? No. What was Michael Brown doing that day? Robbing a convenience store, roughing up a clerk, walking down the middle of the street feeling emboldened by his exploits. And now we're going to take on a white cop. And he dies and he gets shot because his actions were wrong. What part of that does this segment of the African community not understand and get? And yet this stuff is thrown in our face that we're racist, that the system's corrupt. Yeah, the system's corrupt. But not with regard to the decision last night, in light of the facts. I fully expected, because of how crazy our country's gotten, I expected everything to go against that white officer. I was shocked when truth prevailed. Let me make it crystal clear. The people rioting last night, their definition of truth and justice is not the same as the Webster Collegiate Dictionaries. Their system of justice is so screwed up. Their system of justice is defined like this. Whatever we get upset about, when a white man in authority does something to us, it's war. Forget the facts. It's a declaration of war. Never mind the fact that those same people know that their own black children get killed by blacks, that white people minding their own business have been killed by blacks, and there's never an outrage and a protest by them. This is what happens when we live in a country of entitled brats. Thugs. Thugs that think that they have rights. Thugs that say, oh, you didn't read me my Miranda rights. Whether he read you your Miranda rights or not, you still broke the law, and you're guilty, dude. There's something wrong with our justice system when we let somebody get out on a technicality for an atrocious crime. When they fingered Mark Furman as racist on the LAPD, and that caused enough doubt in the jurors' minds, it's like, are you serious? I'm not defending Mark Furman. He was an idiot. It is a segment of the African American community that makes this stuff high profile. They like that. For whatever reason, they're not getting enough attention. They didn't get enough love. So we're going to go out there and shake our baby rattle one more time and make as much noise and take as many people and businesses down as we can. Empty vessels make the loudest noise, Venus Star said, and it fits. We got a segment of African American community that's giving a black eye to the African American community of the United States of America, and they're the ones drawing attention to themselves. They're the ones making the most noise, and they're the ones that are making everybody form an opinion that, wow, these black people are a mess. Wow, there's millions of black people that want nothing to do with this crap. They work hard, they're honest, they're classy, they're upright, they're not prejudiced, they're God-fearing, but it's overshadowed by this atrocious, lawless, immature, dysfunctional behavior of a segment of a whole. Disgusting. And I'm a racist for saying that, right? Just this week, I got a call by a black lady who started at her job as a paraprofessional. I said, why don't we go to coffee one day? Intellectual black people, hardworking black people know that I'm not a racist. People just like me. Different colored skin is the difference. Some cultural differences, but we're human beings trying to make it in this world. And I talk to them and I deal with them all day long. But I also enter the ghetto and I see that. It's crazy, man. I thank God that He gives me the freedom to talk about these things. I thank God that no matter people make their accusations and FU comments on my channel, I know the truth. Trolls used to really bother me. Now I just look at them and shake my head and go, whatever. No, Pacific Ocean Asia doesn't leave any stone unturned. I have the authority and the right to talk about African American issues. I don't have to be African American to talk about African American issues. I simply watch the behavior, watch the actions, watch what goes on, and I have a right to comment. And if they don't like it, you can move along. This is my channel. This is my God-given right. And not only do I have it under the Constitution, but I was given the freedom of speech by God. And one thing I know about people like behaving like they did in Missouri last night, they don't like it that I have that authority. They don't like it that I have that right. And the way they deal with it is, oh, he's a white racist. It's time for them to grow up. It's time for them to listen to what we're seeing and start taking a look at themselves in the mirror. And any self-respecting Negro that's behaving like that ought to take a look at themselves and say, am I setting an example for my boy, for my girl, for my wife, for my family? Hell no, they're not. Pacific Ocean Asia wouldn't set a business on fire. Why? Crazy. Absolute crazy. These people look for an excuse because of their own miserableness, their own state of condition, to act out. They piggyback on a high-profile trial, and they're waiting because they're angry, unhappy people in their own personal lives, and this is an excuse to just lash. I pray to God every one of these fools gets arrested, tried, guilty. And I say take away their houses, take away their cars, take away their bank accounts, and make them pay, pay, pay. We need to stop pussyfooting around with this segment. We need to shut it down and say, you know what? We're done with this terroristic behavior of yours. I have a lot of issues with white people. We're all the ethnicities of the world are broken because of sin. And I believe that even my own race is broken because of sin. But I will tell you, in my 48 years, yes, there's been racism and discrimination, and I've seen it. But I've also seen a certain segment of the black community get a free pass to do things that if any of us white people did that, we would be arrested, tried, busted. In many ways, the system works. And it worked last night. You can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. And as the facts came off the lips of the DA and the grand jury heard all the same evidence, both sides, and they came away saying, we can't indict this guy. I'm not going to offer up those religious, pious prayers and say we need to pray for Ferguson. What I'm going to do is pray that God shuts down these fools that are generating all this rebellion and lawlessness because they're poor, pathetic examples to their children. I'm going to pray that God shuts this stuff down, and I'm going to pray that the parents of Michael Brown would wake up and say, take a look at yourselves and look at what you've started. What? You're accusing us of starting this? You're the ones that wanted to contest the cop for shooting your son. Not once did you look at your son's behavior. I have a son, and I love my son. But if he went out and did something like that, I would look him in the eye and say, I can't defend that. If he got shot by a cop because he punched him in the face and was leaning into the vehicle that he was in, I'd be ashamed and embarrassed, and I'd want to just shut up and go away. Not trying to find a fault with the officer. Because I've told my son, if you don't want trouble, don't traffic on the Trouble Expressway. Don't buy the t-shirt. Don't go into a store and rob it. Don't rough up the clerk. And when a cop tells you to move to the side of the road, move. That segment of the black community is not teaching their kids to submit to the law and submit to the governing authorities, as the Bible says. And yet those same people will say, God bless you. That makes me sick. Deshaya, will be awaiting your response, because I know you've got a lot to say and you have some profound things that I haven't even thought of. And I do a shout out to my viewers. Watch Deshaya Coleman's channel. She's an intelligent radiant countenance black woman who speaks truth. We need to support people like that. Social media is out of control, and social media goes a direction that's also the satanic world system, and we need to be very careful. Even I've learned you can get on the internet and find anything to support your aberrant viewpoint. I'm finding that even now when I want to call a 1-800 number for Hewlett-Packard customer service, do you know how many 1-800 numbers there are? And their company saying they represent or handle HP, and then they're trying to sell you $500 worth of antivirus. I don't need that. The internet is not safe, and it calls for excruciating discernment. I've weighed in on the Michael Brown case. Michael Brown was guilty. Michael Brown caused his own demise. Can I be honest as a Christian? I find it very hard to have compassion for somebody who did that. He got his way. He got what he wanted. He chose to take the way of the fool. He chose to take the way of being lawless, rebellious, in your face, anti-authority. And guess what? The Bible has something to say about that in Romans, that the government is here to execute, God's ministers to execute justice. And if you're doing right, there's no need to fear the authorities. Unfortunately, with the ghetto black segment of the black community, the ghetto black community has taught their kids the whole no fear concept. You'd better have fear when you do wrong. Walking around with that brazen arrogance. F you, cop, don't tell me to get to the side of the road. How come people are feeling brave when they're doing such lawless deeds? That's callousness. That's an example of sin, just singeing and searing your conscience. The Bible talks about having your conscience seared as with a hot iron. And I'm looking at a section of the black community in America that has seared their conscience with a hot iron. They do not have the right or the authority or the credibility to define the word justice. Their mind no longer works accurately. And make no mistake about it, there's white people just like them. There's Hispanic people just like them. Their consciences have been so seared they can't rightly define the word truth, justice, fairness, equality. If we're to define the word equality, then I wonder if the black community would be comfortable for the same business owners to come in and set fire to their apartment buildings, their houses, and tip their cars upside down and smash them to pieces. I wonder if they'd find that okay. Of course they wouldn't. Why is it that blacks can do this stuff and it's okay for them to do this to other people who have nothing to do with the Michael Brown drama? But God forbid they turn around and say, you know what, we're going to get revenge. No, we put up with this long enough. We put up with the millions and millions of dollars that ghetto blacks have caused the American public and taxpayers for police backup, police protection, SWAT teams, tanks coming into LA with the Rodney King ensuing drama. Can I tell you as a taxpayer, I'm tired of it. And I would start telling my leaders, you need to do something to shut this stuff down. It's costing too much money and it's getting too much media attention. And we need to send a message to the world. We don't put up with this kind of stuff. And in that case, that's where China looks good. I'd like to see the African American community pull this crap in China and see how far they get. They would be squashed like a bug. Only in America do we open the door for this kind of ridiculous behavior. It's disgusting. This is Pacific signing off. Bye-bye.